はい、配信がスタートしました。皆さん、こんばんは。見えていますか？音も大丈夫ですか？ぜひチャットで教えてください。はい。それでは、第27回英語シンポジウム世界のハロウィンを開始したいと思います。本日司会を担当しますカフェトークスタッフのアイファと申します。本日参加する2人の講師はロマリー先生とエミリー先生です。最初はロマリー先生は、メキシコの、死者の日を紹介して、その後は、エミリー先生が、ケルトのサムハインの、紹介したいと思います。皆様、ご質問や、コメントがあれば、ぜひチャットボックスでお送りください。Welcome to this 27th Symposium in English. I'm today's host, Aifa from Cafetalk. Today's theme is Halloween. I'm joined with two tutors, Romary Pizarro and Emily. So first, Romary will introduce the Mexican Day of the Dead, and then Emily will be presenting Samhain and the Celtic origins of Halloween. Don't hesitate to comment and ask questions to the tutors in the chat. はい。
Hello, everybody. How's it going? I hope that you guys are having a wonderful evening. My name is Romary Pizarro, and I'm here to present and talk to you a little bit about the Day of the Dead in my country. Okay, so I prepared this presentation, which includes a lot of illustrations and actual pictures from what I call the niche of this celebration in Mexico. The niche of this celebration is the magical town of Pátzcuaro, Michoacán. So as you guys can see here in the presentation, it says that we're gonna go through a journey into the mystical Day of the Dead in this beautiful place. Okay, so you guys can look at the butterflies right there. You guys can look at some kind of like dark pictures in the background, but don't worry too much about it. Okay, it's not gonna be any scary at all. All right, so let's move on to our first reference to talk a little bit about me, guys. I am an illustrator artist, and I'm also a tutor in Cafetalk. I've been working with Cafetalk for around 2 years already, and if you guys look at my presentation here, I am showing you some of the drawings that I create. So if you guys are interested in learning some of the techniques I use into picturing, not only realistic references, you guys can just hit me up and I can help you out. You know, like just expand your creativity into the fantastical realm. So to talk to you a little bit about Pátzcuaro, guys, as I said, it is nestled in the highlands of Michoacán, and it is a place where the veil between the worlds connects in this special day. This is this is the plaza. That's how we call it. Is the main park in the town. You guys can look at the big letters, and if you guys see down here, like right below where it says Cuaro, there is a little phrase that says Puerta del Cielo. In Spanish, that's translated as the doors of heaven. Okay? You guys can look at the trees behind it. You can tell right away that the climate here is kind of cold. It's like in the middle of the woods. So it's most of the time chilly, especially in this time of the year. The Day of the Dead, guys, in Pátzcuaro, celebrates annually on November 1st and 2nd. It's a mystical and enchanting celebration steeped in ancestral traditions. It's a harmonious blend of pre-Hispanic beliefs and Catholicism, where the Mexican people have peacefully maintained and gracefully maintained their ancient customs. You guys can look at the picture here. That's a church. It's a traditional church. Here in Mexico, most of our population has Catholic beliefs. And in this town specifically, you can find that the ornaments and the decorations in most of the churches are, most of the time made of gold and silver. So it's a beautiful thing to visit if you guys have a chance to come to Mexico. Always get into the churches. Always get in them, okay? Because you guys are gonna find like fantastical architecture from inside out. Okay, so that's a recommendation of mine. Now, As it says right here, it says, our journey begins with the shamans, the spiritual guides who bridge the gap between the earthly and the spiritual realms. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the word shaman, but it's like, let's say, like a very knowledgeable old person from any small town in Mexico who would have ancestral knowledge in regards of bringing the dead back to, like our land in this specific celebration. You guys can look at the picture right here in the bottom right corner. You guys see a lot of crosses also representing Catholicism in my city. Well, these crosses are most of them made of, I think, copper, and these are like what we call handcrafted gifts, souvenirs that most of the people like to buy whenever they come visit this small town. This person right here, he's a shaman that I got photographed in one of the ceremonies that I've attended in Pátzcuaro. So he's a wise man. And the reason they are the ones who bring the death to our land is because they perform sacred ceremonies, invoking magical rituals that have been passed down through generations. No, so let's say that not everybody, let's say, will be able to be a shaman if you really want to. You have to inherit such abilities, okay, to be participant on these type of celebrations. So moving on, here you guys can see a church, and I wrote here that the shaman, most of the time, will call upon the Nahualism traditions. Probably this is a new word, guys. This is pronounced in Spanish, Nahualismo. And it's a tradition that relates to embodying animal spirits that represent inner strength and wisdom. So when I say animal spirits, here in Mexico, we have like very renowned animals such as the dog, the cat, the moth, the butterfly, the wolf, what other animal? The cricket. All of these specific species, they do represent something special in this tradition. For example, the cricket represents cleverness, and the cat represents independence. The dog represents loyalty. The coyote or the wolf, right, that will represent wisdom and guidance in the path. So every time that you guys see these specific animals, pictures that would represent our history, they're also giving us a symbolism behind, which is the specific skills or the specific characteristics of a personality in order to transcend to the realm of the dead and like beyond. All right. So it says that nahuals are also guardian animal spirits, and these are said to be intertwined with the souls of the departed. There is an old belief that if you were born in South Mexico, if you were born in a small village like this one, they would leave you out in the woods all by yourself when you're a baby. And the first animal that will come to you, that will get close to you as you're alone in the woods in the middle of the forest, that's the animal that will guide you throughout the rest of your life. So if you get approached by a serpent, if you get approached by a scorpion, if you get approached by a lynx, a cat in the mountains, that's gonna be your guide. That's gonna be your partner for the rest of your life until you pass away. They will be the ones taking you through the bridge to the afterlife. So it is believed that these nahuals guide the spirits of the deceased back to the world of the living during these sacred days on the 1st and the 2nd of November. Next week. Next week, everybody's coming down here to celebrate, okay? So another important thing about my city, Michoacan, is the monarch butterflies. You guys can see them here in the pictures. They are also believed to be ethereal spirits returning to visit their loved ones. Their migration to Michoacan is a marvel I'm not sure if you have heard about it. Like all of our woods are filled up with them, and they remind us of the magical connection between nature and the afterlife. Others, we call them here ofrendas. That's the word in Spanish, and it's the central, let's say, visual concept around the Day of the Dead. These ofrendas are meticulously, as it says right there, decorated shrines, and they're dedicated totally to the memory of the departed. So let's say that your grandma passed away, right? So you gotta put an ofrenda in your house, okay? And you got to use very specific elements like marigolds, which is a very popular flower. Is a yellow flower that you see here all over the ground, right? You guys can put there for your grandma, for your grandparent, for even for a pet that's deceased, right? You guys can put sugar skulls, which is a very popular candy. It's like these tiny little skulls. I'll show you a picture in a little bit. You guys can also put photographs of the people that's deceased, of your loved ones, and you can even bring food to the altar, like an ofrenda, so they can have something to eat or something to drink when they come down, like to visit you on these 2 special days. In my case, for my grandma, she used to love mezcal and coffee. So every Day of the Dead, I prepare for her like a very, very strong cup of black coffee for her. And I also bring them like 2 or 3 shots of mezcal. Okay. You can also bring fruits. You can also bring candy. Whatever they used to like to eat when they were alive, you gotta bring them to them so they have a motive to come and see you, and spend time with you on this special day. Okay. In this picture, guys, you guys can see a cantarito. Cantarito, that's the name of this special ceramic mug. And you guys can see a loaf of bread that we call pan de muerto. This is delicious, guys. I mean, like if you ever come down to Mexico to any of these, during these holidays, I would recommend you to try this out. It's like sweet and crunchy. So it's a delicacy here in Mexico. So moving on, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the marigold, the cempasúchil. Oh, I had a picture here, but it's not popping up anymore. But cempasúchil, that's the name we give it in Spanish. Okay, it blooms in abundance, especially by the end of autumn. Okay, by the end of the fall, and it's another way to refer to guidance of the souls back to the living world. The color is vibrant orange, however, you can find it in other tones as pink. Okay, and it symbolizes, if you choose it to decorate your shrine with yellow flowers, it symbolizes the sun's path, illuminating the way for the departed spirits. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the movie of Coco. It's a Pixar movie. You guys can remember that there is a bridge composed by these marigold flowers. I have some here, by the way, but they're not blooming yet. But you can see how they're getting bright yellow. So these ones will get like super puffy, I guess, by the end of November, because this one is a little bit late. But the decoration all around the graveyards, all around the city, is popping in yellow, reminding us of the sun, our God, that's bringing us our death to hang out with us, all right, on these 2 specific days. As the sun sets, guys, as it gets darker and darker, families gather to paint their faces. We like to paint it like Catrinas, like schools, literally schools. I'll show you some pictures in a little bit. With intricate, I'm going to call it like that, calavera makeup. The word calavera means school, okay, in Spanish. The calavera or sugar skull, as I said before, symbolizes the joyous spirit of the Day of the Dead, embracing the beauty in life and death. There is also like let's say an inclination to wearing a costume on this day. A lot of people would say, "Oh, that's like Halloween," but not really. this is more associated to picturing the dead. I mean, let's say that you want to dress up for the Day of the Dead. You won't dress up as, let's say, Frankenstein, or I don't know, like you won't be dressing up as a witch, or like the common traditional disguise that people would use in the US, or like in other areas that are more into Halloween. No, people here in Mexico, they literally dress up as skeletons or the devil or the dead. That's it. That's kind of like the whole idea of portraying an ethereal soul in the town. Okay, so if you guys look at this picture, kids are the ones that love disguising. They love dressing up for this celebration specifically. You guys can look at their makeups already. You guys can look at the traditional dress that they wear if you choose to be a Katrina on this day. But the whole community organizes parades. So cities, I mean, you can go to Mexico City and there's going to be a parade for the Day of the Dead. You can go to a small town like Pátzcuaro and there's going to be a parade for the Day of the Dead. You can go anywhere on the Day of the Dead here in Mexico and there's got to be a parade, which we call procession. The word procession means to, like, as the main word is to process the journey of the dead by symbolizing it as you walk along the cities of your town when you were alive. So as you're walking around the town, of course, you are dancing. There is a lot of music. There is a lot of singing. Okay. So the idea behind this tradition, guys, is not to make it feel as mystic as dark, but to make it feel as mystic as joyful. You're supposed to have fun. Okay. You guys can see here grown-ups. They're not kids anymore. They're wearing this special makeup. I was thinking on doing that makeup for today, especially, but I mean, here's like 4 a.m. and I obviously couldn't wake up that early to have it done because it takes time. It takes time to have like your face all painted white and then just add on the details around your eyes and, like around your teeth. But many people dress up as La Calaca or La Catrina or La Calavera, right? Which means the representation of death, which are skeletal figures. And of course, as I said, they wear elaborate costumes and makeup to both honor and mock the death, making it a central theme of the celebration. When I say mock the death, guys, it doesn't mean that you guys are going to be insulting death or anything like that. I mean that you're supposed to have fun with death. You're supposed to love death. So when it's time to celebrate it, you have to embrace it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to appreciate how it's part of our life, not only in the terrestrial realm, but also in the ethereal realm. As I said, going back to the topic of food, you guys can see in this picture on our bottom left corner, there is a sugar skull right there. There is pan de muerto. There is some fruit. There is even incense and candles, and lots of marigold flowers as well. And you guys can see even a plate of traditional food, some chocolate, I think, and I think that's some type of prepared meat. Okay, moving on. Since pre-Hispanic Day of the Dead rituals, indigenous cultures in Mesoamerica, such as the Aztecs and Maya, conducted ceremonies to honor deceased ancestors involving offerings, school symbolism, and beliefs in an afterlife. So this is something that's been going on since we remember. Even though we have this Catholicism influence, we have still this separation of beliefs, that it's more about the whole perception of the gods above in the sky, represented by the sun, by the moon, by the planets, by the rain, by the stars. That's the whole actual belief behind it, instead of saying, oh, I have a saint, I have a more godlike figure to follow. It has some mixture of Catholicism, but most of the belief behind this tradition is merely ancestral, is pre-Hispanic. So when you guys come down to Mexico and you guys get to hang out with us on the Day of the Dead, remember to appreciate everything that's around you, because even the clouds, the sky, the sun, the sea, the lakes, the mountains, all of that is celebrating with you the Day of the Dead. That's also part of our life. So don't try to encapsulate this idea into Catholic beliefs only. It's way beyond that. Okay, so just have that in mind. The graveyards, guys. The graveyards are transformed into magical realms as well, bathed in candlelight. All right, so as you guys can see here in this picture up here, families share stories, memories of the deceased, and even jokes about their loved ones. Like, oh, do you remember when grandma used to say this? Oh, do you remember when my uncle used to drink a lot? Do you remember when my cousin used to, like celebrate with us this day, and now he's not here, but he's still here. So it's like an acknowledgement that even though you don't see people, you can still feel them with you this specific moment. So it's a very ritualistic experience, guys. You feel like everything it's magical, to be honest. So in conclusion, the Day of the Dead in Pátzcuaro is a journey into the heart and soul of Mexican culture. It's a celebration that transcends the realms of life and death, where love, memory, and tradition come together in a beautiful tapestry of mysticism. This is what I love the most about this day. And you guys can even tell on the drawings that I put here that my understanding of this day goes beyond tangibility. I think that this is a very intangible experience. Yes, you get to see colorful sceneries around the holiday, but the feeling, guys, the vibe that you get out of this special holiday, it's magical. All right, so if you guys want to follow more of my illustrations, if you guys want to like probably book a class, drawing class with me, so I can teach you how to do like nahuales or calaveras, hook me up here on Cafetalk, or you can just check on my artwork at instagram.com artsy Roma. And actually this month I have special classes for you. I have watercolor classes in which we can, like draw a school together, draw whatever you want in watercolor. And I also have reading classes, share reading classes in Spanish and English of very good books like the Popol Vuh. The book Popol Vuh is totally centered in the prehistoric history of our country. And that's it. That's it for on my side.
Thank you very much. That was a very pretty presentation. I'll read some of the comments that we had. Hilary, thanks. And Kay, too, thank you for confirming that you could hear and see us well. Astrid said, the drawings are so nice. If I'm not mistaken, all the drawings are yours, right? The one that you have
Yeah,
added on each pictures.
yeah.
That's really pretty. That was really pretty. Um,
I
so we
have a few
have,
here.
oh,
You can see. These are like some of the original
wow.
drawings. Like they're just little tiny drawings, but like this one that's in the background, like on the very last slide. This one is called the funeral, which means el funeral in Spanish. So that's some examples. Just some examples.
Thank you. That's really pretty. Um, Canon said, am I correct in understanding that the Disney movie Remember Me was about the Day of the Dead? So I think that's the movie that you mentioned. You mentioned Coco?
Yeah, Coco, that's the one. It's a very good movie. Yeah,
Yes.
it's actually the scenery in the movie, the setting in the movie is like a small town. It was pictured exactly as Pátzcuaro. That's one thing that I can tell you about the movie. Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
resembles the town exactly as it is. Yeah,
Okay, because I didn't see it and I was about to ask you if you think that it is a good representation of the Day
it
of Dead.
is. It is. There
Oh,
is a lot of background like work in it. Like actually they did an excellent job into portraying how the town actually looks like. But not nowadays, more like back in the 80s, back in the 70s, something like that.
that's interesting. I had to double check quickly because yes, I didn't realize that in Japan the movie was called Remember Me, but uh
Oh,
yes,
okay.
In the rest of the world, I think it's Coco.
Coco.
Astrid said, the skull makeup looks so good with colorful clothes. And Canon said also, indeed, yes, that was really pretty. Do adults also do this makeup, or is it mostly children?
All of them, everybody, every single person out there. Yeah, I was telling you that I was gonna do mine, but it's like after midnight here, so
It's
yeah, it would have
I
been like kind
understand.
of scary. All right, but yeah, it's a nice thing to do.
That's great. Um, yes, Rod said, interesting. It was the first time I heard the name Pan de Muerto. I guess it was it for the bread?
Yeah, the bread pan de muerto, it's like this size, guys. I mean, you can even buy it like this size for everybody to share, but it goes like different sizes. The characteristic thing about pan de muerto is that right on top it has like two buns, like a cross made of buns like this, but it's delicious, delicious. Like you can
Oh,
have it with chocolate or coffee.
wow, that's great. I never heard of that, but I definitely want to have some. Cannon said, I think it is wonderful that you consider the day of death not as a sad occasion, but as an opportunity to share the time together and to express our respect for our ancestors. That's really
Exactly. Yeah,
that's true.
that's the
And
point.
they also added, is that monarch butterfly? No.
Monarch butterflies are they migrate to the woods in Michoacan, especially during fall, during autumn season. So
Oh.
I'm not sure if you would allow me, Haifa, but I had it ready. I have a video where where you guys can see it. I have it here on my tablet. Let me just show it to you real quick if you guys want to. Look, it has no sound, but you guys can see perhaps how everything looks orange. I mean, you can just go into the woods, stand still for like, I don't know, a few seconds, and you get surrounded by them. But they're like all over, all over. Even right here in my garden, I can still see them. I mean, I can already spot a few that are coming, like pick up on the flowers. So they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And they're so
Oh.
cool. They're so nice.
Wow, I
Beautiful.
never heard of that. I have one question from
Tell me.
myself that I noted because I was not sure what it meant. What is mezcal? You said you're,
Mezcal?
yes. You said
Have you
you're
guys
great.
heard? It's an alcoholic beverage. It's an alcoholic drink. But have you heard about tequila, for example?
Ah, yes, yes, okay.
Okay. Tequila comes from a plant that we call agave. Okay. An agave
Oh,
plant looks something like this. This is kind of like the shape of an agave plant, right? So mezcal comes from the same agave plant, but the process it's more it's less complex, but the liquor that comes out of it is way stronger, so
oh,
it feels like smoky. If you guys want to compare it with any other drink in Japan, it tastes a little bit like sake. It tastes a
oh,
little bit like sake, so it's very similar to sake, and we have it in shots just like that. You gotta
oh,
kiss it. You don't gonna gulp in it. You gotta kiss it just like this. That's mezcal.
oh. That's just like 日本酒みたいな
Write it
感
down
じ
if
で
you
す
want
ね。
to.
そう。
Mezcal. Mezcal.
Oh, okay, I'll search into that. Thank you very much. That was a very pretty presentation. So now we'll move on to our next presentation. Oh, Emily, did you have any questions maybe beforehand? Sorry.
No, I thought there was some really cool similarities to Day of the Dead and Samhain, which I'm about to talk about. So it was really interesting to hear all the traditions because the countries are so far apart, but it's actually kind of similar.
That's great. And now I just realized that I am mispronouncing it. Can you pronounce it again?
Samhain.
Sour. Okay. Thank you very much. So please you can get started with your presentation. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Emily. My tutor name is Emily S on Cafetalk, and I'm an English tutor. I'll tell you a little bit about my lessons later on. I'm from Wexford in Ireland, which is on the southeast coast. And I did the previous symposium on Ireland and Irish festivals, Irish local festivals. So I think that's still up if you want to check it out. Um, and today I'm talking about Samhain, like we said. So the history of Halloween originates from Ireland, originates from the festival of Samhain. So let's take a look. Like we just mentioned, it's pronounced like this, Samhain, because MH together in Irish makes a W sound. So we say Samhain. And it's a Celtic festival originating in Ireland over 2,000 years ago. And this is back before Ireland was a Catholic country, a Christian country, and so it's a pagan festival. And it symbolizes the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. So in the older Celtic calendar, there would have just been two categories, two seasons, the dark season and the light season. So Samhain marks the end of one and the beginning of the other, end of the light and the start of the dark. And similarly to what we just heard about in Day of the Dead, it's a liminal time. So the veil between our world and the spirit world is a bit thinner on the night of October 31st. So that means that spirits can pass through more easily from the other world, we call it the spirit world, to our world. So these spirits would be the Ishi. So these are Irish fairies. They're probably most similar to fairies, but maybe not fairies how we know them today, not peaceful or necessarily beautiful, but they were quite feared. People were quite afraid of them, but they're very respected because they could bring you good fortune or they could bring you bad fortune if they felt angry. So you have to be very careful with them. You can hear more about those as well in the last Irish Symposium from another tutor. And so the Ishi would pass through, and also the souls of the dead. So the souls of your loved ones who had passed on, they would be able to come back into the other world, into the human world on this night as well. Okay, so some of the traditions. So one of the most important things is making offerings to the Ishi, these fairies, because they needed to be appeased so that people and livestock would survive the winter, because they very much had control over who was going to survive the winter and what was going to happen to your livestock. So you really want to make sure that the fairies are pleased, that they're happy with you, that you're in their good books. So they'd make offerings of food, crops. They'd leave some crops in the ground for the Ishi to have rather than harvesting everything. And then there'd also be a large feast that the people would eat as well as the spirits. So a lot of food prepared for the living and the dead, and there'd be a place set at the table for any deceased family members. And the door would be open so that they could come in and join you for dinner on this night, and you would fill their plate and their cup as if they're there. And yeah, you just get to feel close to them. All right, great. So this is probably one of the most important traditions. But yeah, like we can see, it's not worlds away from Day of the Dead either, right? Welcoming your family with food and everything. So there would also be guising. So comes from the word disguised. So people would dress up in masks, in costumes to blend in with the fairies, with the Ishi, and impersonate them so that they could go unnoticed, maybe, so that they wouldn't draw attention to themselves. And these masks we can see here on the right, they're called fiddle faces. And they'd be worn by maybe gangs of young boys who don't have the best intentions. They would go from farm to farm, demanding food or offerings off farmers who would feel pressured to give them what they asked for in case that the boys were actually Ishi. They'd be afraid to anger the fairies, so they would likely give them whatever they were looking for. And if they didn't, the boys would typically cause some mischief, mess with the farmers a little bit, cause some disruptions, and it would all be blamed on the fairies. So it's one night a year that they could get away with disturbing people and causing a mess. Yeah, so the farmers would really want good fortune for the next season from the Ishi, so they would be very generous with their crops and their food and everything. Yeah, great. So we can kind of see the similarity in modern day Halloween as well with trick or treating, like going from house to house, It's mostly kids nowadays who go trick-or-treating, but it's the same concept. You go door to door, ask for food. Now they go door to door and they ask for sweets. And we also have this association with Halloween and pranksters and tricks, and maybe playing pranks on your neighbors. But they're a bit more innocent nowadays when people don't actually have the fear of repercussions from the fairies or the fear of being in bad fortune from the fairies. So it's a similar thing, but maybe doesn't feel as serious anymore. So some examples of the types of mischief that these groups would cause would be things like pouring water down the chimney so that the fire would be extinguished, removing gates from their hinges so like livestock would escape, knocking on doors and then running and hiding so that they can't see who knocked, and stealing and smashing cabbages. So some of these things also practiced by young people, kids, teenagers today, especially during Halloween, playing innocent pranks on their neighbors, but we've actually been doing it for a really long time. So the bottom right mask is from 1951, so not super old either, not 2,000 years ago. So this, kept happening. All right, perfect. So turnip carving is another tradition that originates from Samhain. So um, turnips were carved to act as lanterns and also to ward off evil spirits. So they were very unpleasant looking, quite scary. As you can see, this one is from 1850. It's actually a plaster cast of a turnip that we have in one of the museums in Ireland. And you can see it's not like a cute jack-lantern like we make today. It's quite scary looking and, yeah, quite unpleasant. But it there's a chance that they were made to light the way for the geysers, the people who went farm to farm. They would carve them and light them so that they could see the way. But they can also just be made to keep evil away, keep spirits with bad intentions away from your door. You put them on your windowsill or your doorstep to kind of protect the home as well. And the connection with this one is pretty clear. We can see it in modern day pumpkin carving, because Irish immigrants would have brought this tradition to the US. So a lot of Irish people emigrated to the US, especially in the mid 1800s because of the Irish potato famine. So there's a huge Irish American community, and they would have brought these traditions over, but they substituted pumpkins because they were more widely available. And also, pumpkins are a bit easier to carve as well. So, even in Ireland now, we don't use turnips anymore. We use pumpkins as well. So, I guess we got that from the Americans. All right, another thing that's done to celebrate Samhain is to make a bonfire. So, these bonfires were lit on top of hills and they were fueled with bones of animals who had been slaughtered and maybe sacrificed to the Ishi to appease them. And everyone would extinguish the fire in their own home, their personal fire to heat the house or to cook with. They would extinguish it on this night and relight it with the communal bonfire as just a way of tying them all together, I suppose. And there's mixed beliefs. So this was originated so long ago. It's difficult to know all the time the intentions and the reasoning. So some people say that this was done to ward off evil spirits, just like the turnips. But some say this was to welcome the kind ones, to like light their way back in to the human world. And so maybe it was both. Um, and it's not to be confused with bonfire night. So we have a lot of times throughout the year where we set bonfires in Ireland. Halloween is one of them. So Halloween represents the end of the light year, like we said, but Bealtaine represents the start of it. So 6 months later, May 1st, we also light bonfires to celebrate that. And we also have a bonfire night on the summer solstice, so June 23rd, when the summer solstice is. We light bonfires then as well. Yeah, they're a big deal. We do them throughout the year. And it's a very communal thing. We sit around them, talk, eat, dance, that kind of thing. So divination, games, and rituals. Divination is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means. So basically, trying to tell your future or trying to answer a question, a particular question about your future. And this was a huge part of Samhain, of Halloween, and it still is. So for these games and rituals, it's really common to use apples and hazelnuts because in Celtic mythology, apples were associated with the other world, the spirit world, and hazelnuts were associated with divine wisdom. So, some information about the divine world. So, some examples of these we've got apple bobbing. So, some of these might sound familiar because we do some of them today as well. So, to bob for apples, you need a large basin of water and some apples you put in the water. Players will try to catch the apples with their teeth, and their hands are tied behind their back. So you go one at a time, or if you have a big basin, all at once, and whoever catches the apple first wins. Your goal is to bite it. And a similar game is snap apple. So you hang an apple from a rope and tie it to the ceiling, and in the same way, hands behind your back, and you try and bite it. Um, it's harder than it sounds, especially if the apples are quite big and you have nothing to stabilize it with, no hands. It often just slips rather than you being able to bite it. So, in both of these games, the objective is to be the first person to bite it, but what that means is that you'll be the first person to get married. And you'll see that in a lot of these games and rituals, the whole focus is on finding out more about your future in marriage. So, if you're going to get married, when you're going to get married, who you're going to get married to, if it will be a successful marriage. People were super concerned about this and super curious about it. So, most of the games revolve around it. Another one is using two hazelnuts, one to represent you and one to represent the person that you hope to marry. And you put them by a fire, so they're roasting. And if the heat makes them jump apart, then it's a bad sign. It's a bad omen. It's probably not going to work out. But if they roast without moving and they cook fully, they roast fully, then it's a sign that it's a good match and you should end up together. All right, so these are just some pictures of the games, if you couldn't imagine them. The first one is the snap apple, and the other one is bobbing for apples. And they're both games that are still played now in Ireland and in other countries throughout the world during Halloween. They are typical Halloween games. We've been playing them for a very long time. And another divination ritual is the Baran Brack. So Baran Brack in Irish means a speckled loaf, speckled like dotted. So these speckles are created with sultanas and raisins that are baked into the loaf. And it's kind of sweeter than bread, but not as sweet as cake. And you eat it toasted just with butter. You don't make sandwiches or anything out of it like that. And it's a fortune telling game. So baked into it, there's some objects, and based on which object you get in your slice, you'll have a different outcome. So there's a pea, there's a stick, there's a piece of cloth, a rag, there's a coin, and a ring. And nowadays we only have the ring because people typically buy their barmbrack now instead of making it at home. So they only sell it with the ring for health and safety measures because it's quite the choking hazard filling your loaf with a bunch of inedible things. So there's one ring in a barmbrack, but you do have to chew pretty carefully to make sure that you don't swallow it. So the meaning of all these things are if you get the P, it means that you would not get married that year. So that is not a good one to get because, like we said before, all everyone's thinking about at this time of year is marriage. So you won't get married if you get the P. If you get the stick, you will get married, but it will be an unhappy marriage. So there'll be constant disputes in your marriage. So also not a great one to get. If you get the cloth, it means you're going to have bad luck or you're going to be poor. And the coin, the opposite, right? You're going to be wealthy, you're going to be rich. And then the ring, the one we still keep, means that you would be wed within the year. So you're going to get married this year. So that's the favorite. That's the one everyone wants to get. All right. So we can see that Halloween in Ireland today is not super different than Samhain, how it originated, and Halloween in other countries as well has a lot of these traditions. So now Halloween in Ireland, it's a little more focused around kids as well, and a little commercialized, of course, but there's a lot of the old traditions as well. So hopefully, if you do, anything to celebrate Halloween this year, you can think about where it comes from. And yeah, happy Halloween, or as we say in Irish, Iahana Sonadich. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to talk more about Ireland or Halloween or anything at all, I have a conversation class in English on Cafetalk, and um, I teach all levels, beginner to advanced, and ages as well. So I have kids' lessons too, which I have materials for, and in my adult lessons, typically you let me know what you want to talk about, and I'll bring material. And it can be mostly discussion based if you like, or we can do some reading and then discussion. It's very flexible. And yeah, we'll tailor it completely to your level and to your interests. So I have a 20% off coupon at the moment for any new students. And I think that is active until November 11th. Yeah, so great. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really nice. So I'll just read a few comments that we have first. Astrid said the masks look quite creepy. The mask, but actually terrifying, I think.
Yeah.
Do you still have this tradition of like do the masks still kind of look the same, or do you have new, more modern versions?
Yeah, so people don't typically dress up like that anymore. So it might have been like teenagers and adults dressing up in the past, but now in Halloween, it's all focused around kids, really. So we have the same costumes that you'd see in the States or on TV or anything, like Frankenstein, vampires, ghosts, things like that. So they don't look like that anymore, but yeah, they were pretty scary.
I see. Kanan said, I am Japanese and I can't help but feel somewhat familiar with the atmosphere and many of the goods that resemble what I imagine Halloween to be like in Japan. Yes, I feel like in Japan, there's also that there's all of the what is the word, offerings.
Uh-huh,
Also
yeah.
there's that culture that is quite similar. I also thought it was really close to that. And oh, then we have is that a mummy? Oh yes, the turnip carving was actually quite terrifying, I thought. um
Yeah.
so right now it's mostly pumpkins, as you said, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they're easier to carve, but we don't carve things that look like that anymore. They we carve some scary things, but they typically look a bit more cartoonish than that. Yeah, those were turnips. It's just a plaster cast, that one. So because it's from so long ago, the turnip is gone. But yeah, they were made to look that scary to ward off anything unwanted.
Oh, Astrid said, "Oh my God, it looks like a head." Yes, it did. It was really quite terrifying. Canon said, "I'm sure the evil spirits will be scared to death if they saw this." Yes,
Yeah,
that
that's the plan.
that must be delicious. Oh, I think it was about the game. Yes, and Astrid said, "I love those games. Have you played them before?"
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've played the hazelnut ones, but I've played all of the others for sure. They're lots of fun, but really difficult. The apple ones are way harder than they look.
I've never tried this. I've never heard of those traditions. It's really interesting. However, I did think the uh Barum break. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the
Yeah,
bread.
that's right. Bar and Brack.
Yes, remind me of what we have in France, like the king cake that we do at the beginning
Oh,
of the year, where we have a small a small thing inside of a cake, and the one that gets it is the king. But it's quite different. It's not about wedding, but it's quite interesting too that I thought there were so many things related to marriage.
so many. Yeah, we're obsessed with it.
That's interesting. Miku said how fun. Yes, the games look actually fun. I kind of want to try that. Kivira said, fantastic presentations. Thank you. Happy Halloween. Thank you very much for watching. Um, Astrid said, a thank you tip. Thank you very much. Happy Halloween. Hiro said, thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much for watching. And Canon said, merci. Oh, merci beaucoup. I see we have some francophones. Thank you very much. So I think that's all the comments and questions that we had. Thank you very much for the presentations. It was really interesting. And I had a great time learning more about your Halloween traditions. So please don't forget to check the tutors' profiles after. They have a lot of lessons to offer. And also feel free to rewatch the streaming if needed. We also have the PowerPoint presentation that you can download afterward. Fumi said thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, everyone, for following this Halloween symposium. And I hope you will have a great Halloween time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.